Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Van Zandt, the president here at the New School, and this is an exciting evening. Not only do we have a wonderful guest for you, but this is also the very first public program in the new University Center. So we're very excited about that. The University Center, we christened it last Thursday night. Some people may say we actually baptized it because of the water main breakout in the middle of Fifth Avenue. And that really made it difficult. We already had a fairly accelerated timeline to get this ready in time for classes this morning and this program tonight, but our great staff here at the New School did a fabulous job in putting it together. It's also great because this is the first day of class, and we were able to welcome our students from the fashion program, down from Midtown. It was just exciting to see everyone in one place. Fashion program is a large important part of our academic program, and now it also has greater connectivity with the rest of the campus and the university. But the University Center, I think, is not just important because it's a great new building, a new facility for all of us, but about what it signifies. It signifies the New School's commitment to creativity and innovation on one hand and social engagement on another. It's fitting, too, that this is the first program. It features Mickey Drexler and Paul Goldberger, two people who deeply understand that the great power of design, as well as the relationship between design, society, culture, and the economy. And I just want to shout out and thanks to Arnold Aronson and Joe Grumek, who are both members of our Board of Trustees, as well as members of the Parsons Board of Governors, for helping put this together. Finally, this is a relaunch of a series we've called The Parsons Table, or At the Parsons Table. And I'm going to ask Joel Towers, our dean at Parsons, to come out and tell us a little bit about that. Joel?
Everyone who follows David has to know how to work a microphone stand. So welcome, everybody. I want to echo David's excitement about the first day of classes. I had a chance to walk through the building today, and I saw more faculty and students interacting in ways that would have been previously impossible at our prior building in Midtown. This building has been designed around the ideas of collaboration, of creativity, an issue that I know is of importance to Mickey and he'll talk about a bit later. And it's just thrilling to be here and to be here to welcome you all on the first day of classes to this first lecture. In many ways, it's also equally thrilling for me to be able to see the relaunch of At the Parsons Table with Paul Goldberger. When I first came to Parsons 10 years ago, Paul was the dean of Parsons at the time, and he initiated this lecture series and was bringing people of great importance in art and design to speak with him about art and design for the students and the community that would come to Parsons. And he brought such luminaries as Frank Gehry, Chuck Close, Donna Karan to speak here. And it is, of course, fitting that when we reinitiate or relaunch this series, we do so with Mickey Drexler. It is, for us, a great honor to have him here, and for me as the Dean of Parsons to have my friend and colleague Paul Goldberger begin this series again. And we will be announcing to you all in the coming weeks a full series of talks over the coming year and years that will continue this lecture series. And so my job really is simply to introduce Paul to you, and he will take over from this moment and introduce Mickey and begin the conversation. Paul really needs no introduction, but it's a pleasure to do so anyway. He is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, for former architecture critic of the New York Times and contributing editor at Vanity Fair now. For those of you among our faculty, you had a little taste of the brilliance that is Paul Goldberger, and I don't use that word lightly, when he spoke in this very room 48 hours ago, I think, Paul, on the importance of this building and its position in the history of the New School and its relationship to the Joseph Urban building built in the 1930s for the New School that is on 12th Street. And indeed, Paul holds the title of the Joseph Urban Chair for Architecture here at the New School, and it is my great pleasure to introduce him to you and welcome you all to this lecture series. Paul Goldberger.
Thank you very much, Joel, and it is great to be here, and I appreciate your deciding that, or realizing that the opening of this new building was a good moment to bring this series back. If the great design story of our age is the democratization of design, and I think it is the great design story of our age in every field of design, so far as fashion is concerned, Mickey Drexler has probably done more than anyone else to bring serious design to the mass market. First at the Gap, and then for the last decade at J.Crew, where he's both chief executive officer and general design guru, working closely with creative director and president Jenna Lyons. Mickey has turned this once slightly sleepy brand, I think it's fair to say, into an international fashion and design presence. He's also a longtime director of another company with a certain interest in design, a little computer company by the name of Apple. And he's on the board of a more recent startup, Warby Parker. So I'm honored and delighted to have Mickey here as we relaunch the series at the Parsons table. Mickey, thank you. J.Crew's always fascinated me. Well, let's say since you took over, it's fascinated me, because it's not narrowly focused, it's not one particular style, and yet there's still a J.Crew sensibility. So let me start by asking, just what is that J.Crew sensibility? How would you define it?
Well, it's hard to answer because you kind of know it when you see it, but the story starts kind of like all our stories start at infancy.
Okay.
So it's hard to say when you take over a business what it is. And by the way, this is an announcement for Parsons. We had a meeting today at the office. I was in Chicago, but Margot's here, and Jenna had a meeting with our Parsons graduates, who I see, Michelle right here. Did you go to Parsons too? 2, 3, and I don't know who else is here, but we had at the meeting today 26 Parsons graduates, all of whom, other than Frank Maugens, who grew up in Holland, are now leading our design teams at Madewell, J.Crew, Crew Cuts, Men's, Women's, etc. So I think it speaks to this school, and I'm not here to talk about the school. I've never been here before. It's my first visit, in fact, because someone asked me what a new school's, new building's like. I don't know. But I think when you come to J.Crew, I can't describe the style. I only know that in my career, and it started off in the department store business. I spent 12 years after 2 or 3 not liking what I did. And I always like to explain to people that you just don't instantly become who you are.
Right.
Steve Jobs happened to become it at 19. The rest of us took much longer to become that. But I think that I always felt that growing up in the world, that style and taste, I never thought about it. I grew up in the Bronx. My father worked in the garment business in a kind of a medium job, buttons and piece goods. My mom was a secretary to YMHA. In those days, women really didn't work. And an only child, but I never really thought about design. I didn't grow up in a nice place.
Okay.
But but if you want to get out of a place, and I like the Bronx, but if you want to get out, you have these visions and this high imagination. But I think J.Crew was just an evolvement of where I had spent the prior 18 years, 4 years at Ann Taylor, 18 years at Gap, and then at J.Crew, kind of having clothes. This is kind of, there's a mission you have.
Right.
It's having nice clothes or accessories or anything, could be cars too. With Steve, it was computers and well-designed and having good software. Having a point of view with style and taste, and not having things that are unaffordable to most people. And I resent the masses thing a little. But I can say whatever.
Tell me that.
Right?
We're here to be honest with each other. That's
because
okay.
I find the world is just not that high integrity about products anymore. We just talked about new buildings in Manhattan. And I wonder how noisy a lot of those new modern high-rises are that people are spending a ridiculous amount of money for. And so I grew up, maybe because the way I grew up, I always wanted to, when I went to Ann Taylor, was have nice clothes. And Ann Taylor then was way different than it is today. Nice clothes, well-styled, well-designed, although my design experience is really over the last years at J.Crew, because I never really worked with designers the way I have now, with clothes that are well-made, respected, and aren't crazily priced, because we have a direct, I don't want to get too much into the business, but we sell what we design and make, and most other companies, and I'm sure there are people who work for design companies here, are wholesalers who sell what they make. They sell it to a department store, whoever. They then double or 2.5 the price, and then they 2.5 it again. So I've always, because maybe I grew up not being able to afford nice things, saying it shouldn't be that way. Now, I'm connecting the dots backwards.
Right.
So what is J.Crew? It's, I think, really, I think, good style. I think it's hard to leave a J.Crew or now a Madewell store or an Old Navy store, and I just go back to my resume,
right, sure.
without looking good and with feeling good about it and knowing that you don't have to pay more than you should pay. But that's it. Plus, you know, someone said I said I should be on time here, right? And with giving people respect.
Right.
I was reading about our new mayor. I read the New York Post every morning. 41 minutes, an hour, and an hour late. You know, it's just not right. I think you respect people as a business person, as a storekeeper, and as a designer. Now, I'm not a designer. I was fortunate to meet up with a lot of talented people. Jenny, who designs crew cuts. Right, Jenny? I think you got there when I got there, or were you there before? What? Same year we started. So, and Michelle, who works for Jenny. But anyway, that's really what it is. So you asked me the style of J.Crew.
I asked what the sensibility is.
The sensibility
What's the mindset?
the mindset is you're not too trendy and you're not trendy. It's your own style. It's you look good in the clothes and you're not wearing a label. I look at the Grammys last night and I look at the Oscars and I'm wearing so-and-so. Well, half of them, all of them get styled and not terribly well, in my opinion.
Right.
No offense, because some of them are my friends. But the world is brand obsessed.
Right.
Designer obsessed. And then I look at the world and I say, well, it's funny because all those clothes are available online at a discount, a lot of them are. Or I go to these great discount stores around or right in town today, and there's a whole revolution going on in the business. And so for me, I've always been an outlier and a contrarian, and I like doing that. And then you have to say at some point, this is the vision we and I have. People have to join your vision club, or else, you know, when Jenna and I met the first day, you know, Jenna had been at J.Crew a long time, and we were the first day eliminating all the ugly clothes on order. I'll never forget. And I've done that in all my jobs, new jobs.
As soon as you came in, you
First day.
unraveled a lot of the stuff they've been doing.
First day at Gap, my first day, and that was a cultural nightmare for me because I was working at 57th and 5th, and I was in San Bruno looking at a highway and a cemetery. I was so depressed. Like, what am I doing here?
Right.
And the first day they had those jeans in 1983 with I forgot what they were called, the jeans with the pockets in the back that were really awful.
Okay.
And they had about
Really awful jeans, they were called.
No, you remember them.
Yeah,
Anyone
yeah.
who's in my generation of fashion, I forgot. So, there was a famous name. And you know, most people run their business rear view mirror. Now, so we looked at it, and the first thing we did, well, I do that in all my new jobs, is you look at the goods, you look at the product, and you look at the team, and you figure out what product's right and what team members are right, and then you go to work fast. At J.Crew, we went really fast because the company was hemorrhaging of money and cash. We had no money and yada yada. So
It was hemorrhaging money and cash. It didn't have enough customers, and you were taking away product.
well,
So that's a pretty
can't-
daring
well,
way to start,
You always,
isn't it?
I always say rules. I said to someone who famously ran a business in the last year or two. I always say this to people I know who, if you're going to take over a business, you're going to change, you're going to lose money the first or second year.
Okay.
You have to. You're getting rid of the inventory. You're marking down things. You're converting it to cash. And you must signal change immediately. And who has the patience to live with ugly goods?
Right.
And-
Just to sell down the
Well,
inventory.
you look at it and you're selling. Well, it's running a business. It's not aesthetic only. It's what do I want to look like? Like cars, for example. I don't understand why some cars just have bad colors. And why can't you buy a great dark gray car? And I've had this discussion with car manufacturers.
The Germans always did good gray.
Well, they do
good
it, but
gray
the
and
colors, you
silver,
can't
no?
get a great gray. But it's silly. It's really, it's a silly issue, but it really isn't. Because for me, I've always, at Ann Taylor, I had one muse. It was Jackie Kennedy. She didn't know it, but whatever I did, I would say, would Jackie like this?
Okay.
Now, I do that now too, but there's not many Jackies left in the world because
So-
they're all on the cover of U.S. Magazine or People, and it's, it's a celebrity thing.
So who is the muse now?
It's just, well, the muses are the people that, if you come to our offices, for me, it's filled with muses, right? You see it, you feel it, it's part of it. But in those days, I'm talking about 30 years ago, you always need someone to look at and figure out who you're designing for. And then you cannot pay attention to the rest of the 95%, as long as you're not elitist and arrogant. Like, the mass is fine, but at Old Navy, when we started Old Navy, that was started
Right.
because we felt, and Target actually was the reason we started it. We're going in the right direction.
Yeah,
Or-
this is
okay,
great.
fine.
Keep going.
I
Keep
don't
going.
know. They announced in the New York Times that they were starting a company to copy the Gap. And everyone was copying the Gap in the mid-90s. And then I went to look at the store in Mall of America, and I said, that's a really bad copy of the Gap. Now, I didn't know anything, but you still connect dots. So I was I guess it was in Minneapolis, Mall of America. It was a
Right.
bad copy
Right.
at those diamond tables. And then on the way home, I stopped in Chicago and then went to some bad Gap stores with markdowns. And you start speaking to the associates saying, well, why can't we sell anything at regular price? They say, because our prices are too high. Now, I thought Gap prices were actually quite moderate and affordable. Our jeans were $34.50 and above. So you start to look at things, and the $34.50 jeans, we found out 80% of the jeans in America then were $30 and below. So Gap jeans were actually appealing to the top 20%.
Right.
When I always thought after Ann Taylor, and Ann Taylor was fancier in the early days, I always thought Gap was like appealing to this. And then we said, well, it's not. So we started Old Navy after giving $200 to 10 people in the office. And part of this is the curiosity, and $200 then is probably like $400 today. So go to all the discounters and come back, and we assigned a category. Come back and tell us about your shopping experience. Well, they didn't care if it was 87 cents or 99 cents. They never cared about that. They only cared at the end what the goods were like and was their real value. So we started Old Navy. I say that simply. It's not easy to start a business. We named it Old Navy after a bar in Paris. It's still there on the Saint-Germain. I was coming home one day on the way to the airport with Maggie then, who worked with me. And we said, wow, what a great name, Old Navy. So we called the lawyer and we registered it. So now I had a big fight with the bureaucrats, meaning board members. And remember, if you want to do something in your life, now it wasn't easy. I had to make a living. I had to pay a mortgage. It wasn't like, oh, here's all this stuff, you can do whatever you want. And I was pretty young then. And the board didn't like it. They said, we don't like the name Old Navy. And it's kind of like saying, well, if your friend names their kid something, or you do, you have a right to call your kid whatever you want, right?
Right.
Kid might not like it 10 or 15 years later, but that was the name of the business. So we had to hire 2 naming companies. This is just the idea of bureaucracy in organizations. And by the way, this is all reinforced in my 12 years of Steve Jobs, because this is the stuff we did together. And you say, well, who cares what they think if you have a vision? If you have a vision on something, and you all go through this creatively, and then you go to the committee, and the committee's this, that, and the other thing. So we started Old Navy, forced to name it Old Navy Gap. That was the first name of the first store. I negotiated. I lost the negotiation because I didn't own 32% of the stock.
Right.
But anyway, within 6 months, we changed it to Old Navy. Now, Old Navy today, I don't know, I don't pay attention, but it's a very big business.
It's still a very strong brand, right?
Well, it's a strong brand, totally different. What the purpose of that was, and it's the same thing with J.Crew, the purpose was not to be a sale business. The purpose was, and this world has changed dramatically in the last, it's always changing. The purpose of Old Navy was to have respect for a valued customer. It was very cool in the old days. I mean, we had Carrie Donovan, who some people might remember.
I remember Carrie Donovan.
Carrie, this is
I
all the
worked
old
with her
guys
at the New
speaking.
York
These are the old
Times,
guys speaking.
Right.
We had
right.
Carrie Donovan. We had, you name it, they were representing. The TV ads were extraordinary. And we just had a lot of fun, and the business was like a rocket.
Right.
But that's how things happen. So you have a vision, and then you stay with it, and people will tell you you can't do it, but you have to do what you believe in, and then take a shot. Now, you can lose your job. I was at Gap for a year, and I didn't have any money. I borrowed all the money from my house in San Francisco. I hated living there anyway, so it might not have been a bad idea if I came back, but I spent 18 years there. It took me 5 years to get used to it. Different environment. This is the greatest city in the world, in my opinion. So I called my wife up one day and I said, I just told the chairman to go and do that, and yada yada. It was a little like Justin Bieber's conversation or whatever. What's his name? Bieber, Justin, right?
Right, yes, Justin
You know,
Bieber,
whatever he
right,
said to
right.
the police. So, but you know, you kind of learn over time that you do what you have to do, but fear is part of everything we do every day. I don't want people to think, oh, I grew up in, you know, I was a young president of the Ann Taylor. I didn't think I was young at 35, but I was a CO, and, you know, to
Right,
me it was
sure.
a job and whatever, and so on and so forth. So that's a long answer to your question.
No, that's good.
About J.Crew today, but style, it's quality, it's not ripping people off. And our pixie pant, which is $89.50, is the greatest fitting. And this is not a commercial, but I have to say it. We have product in the company that when I look at the equivalent products, but we don't have that fancy Dan name,
Right.
who's also 50% of the time in the discount stores. If anyone shops Century 21 here, oh my God. Go online, oh my God. We have a game at the company. Go online and buy it cheaper. Now, there are companies out there, and this is the revolution of online, that's creating commodities
Right.
out of a lot of things today. But you have questions.
No, but this is almost anything you can say is relevant here, actually. In fact, and
All right, fine.
you began to talk about another merchant whose stuff often appears at discount, who's a well-known name, who sells under his own name. I
I
presume.
started talking about that.
I think you did a moment ago.
No, but I
yes,
didn't mention a
yes.
name.
You didn't mention a
I
name.
never
no.
mention names.
But I was going to ask
Right,
you.
Margot? Never
Thinking,
mention
okay.
names.
Thinking of a name that you might have been thinking of,
No, I
is
will
there
never-
ever
don't even ask me.
ever a possibility that J.Crew will broaden its stance to go beyond clothes? That's where I was getting.
No. You know, I find the following.
Mm-hmm.
The more people try to do more than they can do comfortably, the less good you get at what you do. Now,
Right.
at Gap, we had Old Navy, we had Banana Republic, and we had, I was going to say J.Crew.
Right,
Old
right,
Navy,
Gap,
Banana
right,
Republic,
right,
and Gap.
right.
And you know, I was responsible for all that. The board didn't like that I did all the creative, and then they took it away from me. They gave it back to me, and then I got fired, which made life easier because I came back to New York. But and there's reasons I got fired, and that's fine. It's a whole other thing. We're all subject to getting fired, and I'm sorry it didn't happen earlier in my life because it's really not a painful thing unless you can't get another job.
Right, but you got another job pretty
So,
quick.
But I think the idea of all these businesses, people always say, get into the home business. They say maternity a lot. Now, we do have maternity. Most people don't know about it because we did 3 pants. We have 3, and if anyone's pregnant, I'll give you a discount on a maternity because no one knows about it. That's true, by the way. Just email me and
Okay.
you'll do that. But we don't want to do home because it's a tough business, and what do we know about home? What do we know about this? And now I see these people running these big companies, and I'm old-fashioned about it. I always say in the car industry, well, what does the airplane guy know about cars? Now, they might know about manufacturing, but I believe you have to know about product, and you have to have been to school in your life, not
Right.
going to school to learn. And so I look at all these people, and I say, why do companies hire people who don't have experience in certain categories of business? Because I go to work every day learning, every single day. I learn, I'm curious, and we all are. And I don't know a lot of people who run companies today, and this is maybe unfair, but from my experience, who really care that much about a product. I said something to a friend of mine who runs a TV station. This is a silly little thing. Anyone watch, this is an older person's show, 48 Hours. No one watches it, right? You want a good crime show and all that? Well, I said this to the CEO of the company, who's a friend. I said, you know, you do a lot of repeats on 48 Hours, but when you look at the guide, the TV guide, and I'm a big fan of it, it says first shown is that day. I don't know if you know, am I the only one who knows this? So you turn it on, and within 5 minutes, I think I've seen it, because they're all pretty much the same. I said, you know, they changed it. And I said to him, I think you should put the original date shown. Of course, it'll never happen in a million years, and this was last summer. But I find that the detail, the creativity, paying attention to product is so important. And I don't think a lot of companies do that.
And your point, I think, is also that you can't spread yourself
You
that
cannot.
thin.
Look, Steve used to, I like
Yeah.
to name drop Steve, because he was brilliant, and I miss him. And he'd always say, we don't have time for that. Now, they did 5 products, and they do 160 billion. We have thousands of products, and we do much less than that. But I think if you want to specialize in something, you specialize and do it the best in the world. And most companies, and J.Crew is actually a very complex business, because you look at how many products we have, and you look at what Jenny designs in kids, like many, many SKUs, and Michelle buys the goods, she buys the market goods. And it's very complex. Madewell's a little bit easier, less product assortment, but it's very hard to be good at what you do unless you're totally dedicated to what you do.
You know, my favorite Steve Jobs line was, at one point he said, sometimes you just have to say no to concentrate on what's important.
Right. Oh, more no's than yeses,
Right,
for sure.
right. Meaning you just have to exclude a lot of things, or it
keep
won't.
saying
Right.
no, no, no. I was in
Right.
Chicago today at a meeting, just with, not just with the store managers, and now this kick I'm on is we have really nice product, but how many people do we walk every day in our stores or online because we don't have their size? It's ridiculously a huge opportunity. But why don't we have sizes in stock? Because merchants and people are busy buying too much. So anytime you go into most stores today, there's just too much. It's frightening how much choice there is in the world. And everyone's copying everyone else with the choice. And so the less you do, the more dominant you do it, and the more famous it becomes, the more successful you will be. Now, I think J.Crew, one of our successes is huge trust, and it takes years to build a great business. And I think people know our quality, our value, and our style. Now, we make mistakes on style. We all do. We have bad colors, we have good colors, but things happen for a reason. And for us, we're always connecting the dots. I was in the office today, I got back this afternoon, and someone who works for I don't know if Samsek's here. You're not here. Samsek's the head designer at Madewell. And one Esther was wearing a off-white sweatshirt. And she came into, because someone who was hired today, I met them, and I said, Esther, I love the sweatshirt. And she said, and this is part of the curiosity connecting dots, I said, are we doing that? She goes, well, we're not doing it because the sleeves are too big. But I said, no, the color. It was off-white. And some of you are wearing sweats. It's kind of hot. It's cool. And she goes, they didn't pick this color. I said, why not? So I called Samsek. You get on the loudspeaker. It's fun, you know. And I said, why? You know, everyone has gray. They have black. They have this. I said, off-white. It looks fantastic. Esther said, I love this color. People love it when they wear it, so now it's on the line. But, you know, there's no exact science here. A lot of it is instinct. I always say my best friend is my instinct. It was not that way up until the last 5 or 10 years when I said you start to measure your results on rights and wrongs. Oh, I should have done that. I didn't. I knew I was right. We all say that. But then you listen to 10 people in a room, and then you get into trouble. So we started Gap Kids, and they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do Old Navy. Crew cuts, you know, by the time I got to J.Crew, people listen to me too much at J.Crew now because of my record. And I really like people to disagree or fight. Jenna does that with me, and I feel good about it. And then, you know, you need someone to say don't or do it, don't do it, or whatever. But I think focus is really important. You know, Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player ever, failed in baseball.
Right.
Now, they might all be too young to know Michael Jordan, but, you know, but he was a Class
They may be
C.
too young to know baseball.
Yeah, right. He was a Class C player. But I think too many people, when they get successful at one thing, most rich people, in fact,
they can
think
do
they're good
anything.
at everything.
Right.
You know,
right.
you show me a rich person, they have the answer to most things. Not every rich person, but a lot of people,
right.
you know.
That's true.
And
That's
some of them are good at it, like Mayor Bloomberg. He knew,
Right, but that was a rare exception, I think.
Right, exactly.
Was Mayor Bloomberg, who actually knew how to run a city as well as a company.
Fantastic.
Yes, no, I agree. Let's talk for a minute about the stores themselves. I mean, retail, J.Crew is a business that really started as a catalog business.
1983,
and it's become
right.
more and more and more a retail business. Design plays a huge role increasingly, I think, in the stores themselves. And
It's style
the way
and
you design
Yeah.
merchandise, the way you display things, the way you design the overall space.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I mean,
Okay.
it's designed, but it's for me, it's always simple and timeless design, because in a store, you don't want to see, like hotels, stores, you go and you see like hotels, they spend more money on granite and marble. In ugly hotels, and ugly
Right.
marble and granite, you know, and the rugs and all that. But I think it's for us, we have someone who designs our stores. He's in-house. Most of our creative is in-house. Jen is very involved, and there's a certain sense of style like doing your own home. But I think, you know, it's hard to define what makes a good space or not, what makes a good environment or not. And it's in the feeling of that. It's true with restaurants, it's hotels, it's cars, it's spaces, it's anything. This is a very beautiful room. I think the lights are very bright, but it has to be.
It's supposed to be on you.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
right.
But you know, I don't think we have. It's not. It's just a style.
Should you see merchandise first, or
Yes,
should you?
always.
Okay.
I think, and I don't think there's a way to describe a cool space. You know, I was in some guy I know opened a restaurant downtown. He has one uptown where I go to a lot. And he said to me, "What do you think of the downtown space?" Because I hadn't heard from you, so I figured you don't like it. I said, "You're right." I didn't want to tell him, but it didn't. I said it just didn't. I don't know. I'm not an expert on design. It didn't feel right.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, but you have instinct. We've
It's
been
an
talking
instinct.
about
Look,
that.
I look
Okay.
at things, and I just say, look, I grew up in an environment I was trying to get out of. So if you're trying to escape your environment, you're always imagining a new environment. If you think about it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people say, oh, you do what you do. I said, you do. It starts, your early stages of life are always inside of you, right? You can't escape.
Right. It's in your head.
I mean,
Right,
I had
right.
the worst apartment in the Bronx, relatively speaking. I could never escape it
Right.
until I escaped it.
Right.
You know, it
Right,
was
right.
noisy, it was, the windows were there, I didn't have a bedroom, and all that stuff you read about guys who get successful, women, oh, they grow up. But, you know, so you can't imagine, but it was just a matter of looking for something better and nicer that I found appealing to me.
But there is something going on in those stores, because I noticed that there's
Always.
It's not.
It's
I mean,
always going
there's
on.
very careful attention to color, the
Look,
way
we
things
have-
are put around,
yes.
the books, the sort of props
Everything,
and books and
but
stuff like that. All over.
creativity
Yeah.
is not a legislation. It's not a corporate thing. It's putting together a team of people. Look, if Jenny came up, how does she design the line, right? She'd be able to answer the questions. Jenny, not Jenna. But or Michelle, how does she see things that go on? But it's just a matter of letting people think out of the box. I spent 12 years working for companies that, God forbid, I came up with an idea. No. You know, like a lot of no's after a while. I say, I hate what I do. But I had a mortgage. I then had one kid. I had to make a living. And then I had to move to California to get a job I thought I could make an impact and a difference in, which was running Gap. Now, I didn't want to leave New York City, but most companies don't listen to what people are thinking. They don't even know who people are half the time. I don't want to generalize. I'm sure there are exceptions. I know there's a lot of people I know on the board sitting there, and there's probably exceptions. But I've learned that what do I know without seeing what other people know? And then you see things and you get a feeling.
Right.
You get a feeling, and then you develop an instinct. Like before I got over here, we had these extraordinary socks that sell like crazy at J.Crew in men's. So we had a huge holiday season. And then I asked, how many do we buy for spring? We bought 20,000 for holiday. They bought 400 for spring. I said, can you explain? And the only reason I found out is because I was asking questions. And then she, you know, I love Allie. She came over, she goes, I know I'm guilty. I said, you're so guilty, it's scary. I said, where's your instinct on how good these socks are? Because she was waiting to see how they did in the holiday period before she placed the spring order. So you end up not
But then it's
placing.
too late, though. Right.
It's too late.
Right.
But that's the thing. Young people are afraid, and I say young, they're afraid they're going to get fired for that. They're not going to get fired unless they don't do their job well over time. So it's just what I've learned. I've been doing this a long time, and believe me, I was scared as hell when I was in my 30s too, or my 20s, about getting fired or not being nice to the boss or this, that, and the other thing. But after a while, you kind of develop the confidence and the instinct.
Great. We're going to keep talking for another few minutes, but let me remind you that you're welcome to write questions on index cards if you have them, and ushers will collect them on the aisles. And hopefully we'll have time to get to at least a few of them in a little while.
How's it going so far? I mean,
You're doing
Okay.
great. You're doing great.
I just want to know.
I especially love your concise answers to all these questions too.
Well,
I think they're great.
Yeah, well, Margot, are the answers too long or no?
No,
Okay,
they're
'cause
wonderful.
Margot
They're
is-
actually great.
Okay,
Because in
it's
fact,
not like I have a handler, but
the whole idea of this is that it's a conversation.
Okay, all
So this is exactly right.
I have a lot to say. I don't say it a lot. That's why I think
No,
it's
it's
important.
great- it's great to
I can't see
have
most
you
of the people
focus
here,
on some of this
but I
stuff.
think it's important that people know what, from my own experience, which is mostly contrarian. And I've heard great things about. How many people are students here, by the way? Because what I did hear from our team is that the description of what goes on here is really what I think most schools should be like. Working with the best in a business, the best in the industry, going outside. New York City is your classroom, being curious, having relationships, in a
Right.
sense, with those that know more. And so,
Great.
but I'll do more concise. Go ahead.
No.
Okay,
I
good.
love hearing you talk.
Okay.
If we had 2.5 hours, I would say absolutely keep going. How did you come to be selling? You talked a moment ago about J.Crew sort of as a brand and building it. It doesn't have the name of a designer. It is all sort of J.Crew. But lately, you've also been selling things with other brands manufactured by other companies.
Right, absolutely.
What led you to
That's her
decide
job,
to do
and
that?
kids. Michelle, that's
Why
her.
did you decide
Stand
to
up,
do it?
Michelle.
Okay.
That's her job.
Okay.
And
Well-
she went to
well,
Parsons. Go ahead.
Why did you decide to do it? How do you or Michelle make the decisions about what you carry, what's suitable for J.Crew,
Well,
what
it's a
isn't,
really
and so
good
forth?
question. It started about 6 or 7 years ago, and we were kind of. It's going to be a long answer.
That's all right. I love
Okay.
the long
Right,
answers.
but we was kind of.
If you're willing to stay and give them, we're willing
I'm
to stay
staying.
here. It's
We
fine.
had. You start to think about business. I find then Tokyo was the most inspirational city in the world. Now I don't go looking as designers do for ideas. I just go around. You can see as many things in New York City, not in suburban Chicago today. No ideas there, but you just spend time. You see things that excite you. Get ideas
right.
in many places. So about 5 or 6 years ago, we think about when we started to change men's. And men's for us was always kind of boring. Everything was the same. Women's had a million competitors, so I'll talk about men's. And we started to think most guys don't want to be like a uniform of, and my old company created this, I won't say which one, but it's like, we were getting tired of everything being from J.Crew. And we also knew, as we took the business this way, without giving up this, there were so many great things out there that guys wanted and that we couldn't do better than them, than the brands. And then we also started to look competitively, and this is important. We said, well, if we find a great shoe brand, which we did, we found a great jacket brand, we found a great luggage brand, and you said, well, where can I buy that in America? And then you go online, because it's so accessible to shop anything, and you say, well, there's really no place to find X brand.
Right.
I don't want to name the brands because I don't know if there's any competitors here, but there's no place. And we brought in, what's the men's shoe? First one we brought in. No, not Alden. It was the boot, Red Wing. So we brought in vintage Red Wing, which, it wasn't mainstream. And then you say, well, where do they sell it? So we brought that in, and it kind of went with our clothes better than our designs.
Right. And the Thomas Mason shirts are
Thomas
similar,
Mason,
right?
better fabric. We brought in Alden, which when I was a young guy, you'd go to Europe to buy Alden, and all the best shops in Europe still today. And then we went to visit their factory in New Bedford, Massachusetts. It's New Bedford? I think that's where Madewell was founded, in New Bedford. That Madewell was founded in 1937. And we started there. We have Crockett & Jones, which is a very small, high-quality English factory. And so we then start to search the world. Who do you buy from in kids? You're looking worldwide for great little products that most people are not going to sell because it's not a big name that's already known.
Right.
So I think, I look at great stores around, and great stores are, I hate the word curated, it's used like, but you have someone with a vision picking goods in a great store.
Right.
or they're designing them. So we said, we'll enhance what we do. We'll build businesses with people. And that's how it started. It's mostly men's, and then we do it in kids. We started doing it in baby. We launched our own baby collection. But it's things people want that we don't do as well, or we don't have the history or the authenticity.
Right.
Like in New Balance, we went to them, and we have an extraordinary, now look, we're clearly not a big customer relative to whatever those big chains are, but all the shoes they do for us, they do exclusively.
Right.
Alden does runs of 400 or 500 shoes. It's not like a get-rich scheme, but the 1% loves it.
Yeah, you're not trying to sell that stuff in the volume of the other things, right?
No, you can't, because most of what happens actually is most of the factories don't have the ability to make
Right.
that much.
Right.
Number one. Number two, when we do it, then all of a sudden everyone's running to do it. We have a few competitors. I always say, if they want to be us, let them just pay us a fee. And I'll never forget when I went to Gap in 1983, I was chatting with Don Fisher, and I'll never forget this. So Gap was a disaster then.
Right.
And it was a $400 million company, and Don knew it was going downhill fast. And I don't know if anyone remembers a spree in the early 80s. It was hot. You remember it? So, you what? I'm glad people, I know you're not my age, but I know whatever. So Doug Tompkins, who was the founder with Susie, who sold the business a million years ago and lives in the biggest land in Chile or whatever, sent a note to Don. And the note says, and I want to do this every day. Margot keeps saying, don't send the note. So, because I don't want to send it to my competitors and give them the satisfaction. It said, Don, if you want to be a creative company, don't have us do the creative for you. Copy the spree. Now, I've had this conversation with one big company CEO. It was the most miserable time I had on the phone. I said, I'm never going to make this call again. I said, by the way, everything you're doing is copying us. And he denied it, and he screamed. And he's one of these tough people who's not pleasant. And that was the end of that. But and the other day, one of our competitors has one of our most important pant names they're marketing. Of course, it's $34, buy it for $19.99. So,
right. These other brands also, I would think, part of the reason you do it is they have a kind of halo effect over the rest of the
absolutely.
business, right?
They have a halo effect, and but we want to. You know what it is? I don't want to say I see no reason to buy designer clothes, but I kind of see no reason to buy designer clothes. I understand the accessories and the handbags, and I'm very envious of, the Celine mini luggage, which one of the people who worked at Celine's store works for us, and the amount they sell on Madison Avenue in 1 week, it just makes you jealous,
Right.
and you're upset, and why can't I sell that at $3,000 times 200? It's like a lot of business every week. So, no, but I think it's that. It is a halo effect, but I also think if you look, when I left Gap Corporation, I was looking at the business out there. I said, everyone's going this way, lower, and then there's these crazy high-priced things, and then
Right.
what's in the middle? Nothing. Now, I felt that way about Gap. I actually felt that way about Ann Taylor. I felt that way about Gap Kids. Now, Crew Cuts is really aimed at a higher level customer. And I think Madewell's more in the middle, but very, very hip. So you look at it, and it is a halo effect, but we really put a lot of work in all our products. And we all look at it. We live with every product.
Right.
We look at it. We spent last week 2 days. We have Factory tomorrow. We have Kids. I don't know when we're doing the Kids. We have Madewell this week. And we look at every single product. We look at the price. And we try to deliver a fair product. Now, online is kind of throwing a lot of things up in the air, but you have more questions.
No, one of the questions was about online, in fact. So
Well, it's...
go right to it.
Well, online, we've said it now for years, I never wanted to sell a product. In my early career, when I was in the department stores, and one of my friends who runs one of the department stores says, you're still talking about the swimsuit sales at Bloomingdale's. I was a swimsuit, sweater, and T-shirt buyer. Every time a discounter, now you couldn't go online, every time a discounter, this is early 1970s, they went on sale, I had to mark down my inventory. So then I went to a few other department stores. I hated it, but I did it. And every time I bought something, I didn't have control over it. And so when I ended up at Ann Taylor in 1980, I ended up there in 1980. I ran the business, and we said, well, we're going to go style, we're going to go vertical, because Brooks Brothers then, different business than it is today, was owned by the same company. And Brooks Brothers then didn't have to worry about anyone going on sale. They had their own label.
Right.
And so Brooks Brothers, and I saw how profitable they were then. It's a whole different vibe today. I don't want to get into it, but it's Brooks Brothers. And then there was Benetton, who was really good in their early days. And I used to shop for my then little boy at Benetton. So I was very inspired by owning your own brand and by protecting your franchise. Fast forward the rest of my career.
Right.
I don't want to get up in the morning and have to sell anyone's. I don't want to suck up to a salesman. I'm against sucking up to salesmen. I never got along with a salesman early in my career because they would tell you a store in Philadelphia sold something last week and then you should reorder it. You should buy it. I said, who gives a shit about a store in Philadelphia? Then you get into fights and all that. So I didn't want to deal with anyone
unless you're another store in Philadelphia.
Right, exactly.
Right.
They say, oh, it's sold, the code's sold, and then they base their selling on the world of selling. It was all selling. So then I went to Ann Taylor, and we went Ann Taylor Studio because of Brooks Brothers as an inspiration. Now, you got to keep your eyes on. It wasn't like I invented this, because I didn't. I loved Benetton as a concept, and now I know the Benetton family, but they kind of walked away from one of the greatest franchises in the world. And we went to Gap. That was pretty much it. It was a formula business. Now, fast forward all these years, you want to check something, go right online, and people don't do it. I don't understand it. I call up people I know run companies, said, by the way, this is your price in the shopping mall, and this is Amazon at Target's price. Now, in the shopping mall, you have to pay the rent for 50, 60 margins. And I know a few of those companies getting their ass kicked today. Steve Jobs, when he came to me 14 years ago and we met, I knew him before, but he said, I want to do what you do at Gap. And I'm thinking, well, it works for clothes. He goes, I want to open up stores.
Right.
He didn't say it this way, but he said, I want to open up stores because I want to control my distribution. I want to create an environment that's my environment. I have Best Buy do it, and the rest of them are all out of business. Best Buy computer stores and Circuit City.
Those, yeah,
I think they're all out of business. Now, the last 10 years, what's happening? Everyone's encroaching upon everyone else's territory. And when you go to the shopping malls or the factory malls, and you know some of the very big, successful, high-profit companies make all their money discounting now.
Right.
So online has made this a very democratic world on price, quick information, and it's very deflationary, in my opinion, because you're eliminating a lot of that margin in the middle. Now, why is TJX the most valuable? What? TJX? Max. X is the corporate name.
Oh, okay.
So did you work there or no? No, okay, because Carol would get mad if I said, all right, TJX is the corporate name, right? CJ Maxx and whoever else they own. It's the most valuable retailer, I think, in America, except for Walmart. Well, they're worth 48 or 42 billion. What's Macy's? Add up Macy's, Lord & Taylor, and all them. TJ Maxx, what brand don't they carry? Tells you everything going on. Amazon doesn't make a profit. I don't know if that's good or bad. Certainly good given the value of their company. But you just get the brands and you check it out online or you go to the stores. So right now it's been hugely disruptive.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to be in a commodity branded business. That's just personal. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
No, but you've been able to sort of stay under that radar in a way and operate separately from
I learned 30 years ago I don't want to compete on price and I want to have exclusivity. It's not like you have this grand strategy. It then happens, it's in your mind. It's not like, oh, I woke up when I was 30 years old and said, shit, I can't stand this competing and what are they doing? But you do think about it and then it kind of happens. And then, again, when you connect dots backwards, you see where you were going.
Right. It's interesting. It's easy to say I'm not going to compete on price if you're all the way at the top end of price.
Right.
You're in a sort of upper middle and very value conscious, which means there must be incredible pressure on you.
Well, the industry today, you see this year.
Yeah.
You see what's going on out there. And then there's shopping, who knows what's going to happen. There's shopping center pressures.
Right.
The results from most retailers this year were not good. You can blame weather all day long. Don't blame the weather. You can't blame anyone but how you run your own business. But the fact is, online is a major way to shop today. And for us, too, we have a huge online business.
Right.
And we actually have one of the biggest apparel online businesses. But we also have stores that are successful. but it's very complex running.
It feels like a more seamless connection at J.Crew between online and the
Well,
stores.
it will be, yes,
because I've been
it
in
is.
stores where they refer
Right.
you to
Well,
online, which normally they wouldn't do.
It will be more and more and more. There's some competitors who are brilliant at the seamless. We are halfway to 2/3 there. We have a few more links to make it seamless. But as long as the revenue's there for us, look, we're very profitable online. We love the online business. We love the store business. And people don't always want to buy things online. We try to make it seamless. Most importantly, it's how you invest in the goods,
Right.
the focus in the product, and what you want to make famous or not, I always say.
But you've been able to do online without cannibalizing the stores. That seems to me the real achievement.
Well, we're a small company. And if you kind of think that way and don't think you're a big company, because we're not that big. I never thought Gap was big till it got too big, and then it wasn't fun anymore. But we're a small company. We only do about $2.5 billion. Small relative to what I think the opportunity is. Madewell's a tiny little business. I don't know how many people shop there, but that's a startup. It's now 6 or 7 years old, and it's finally taken hold. And I would beg you to try our jeans. And if anyone wants a 20% off on the jeans, I'll do it just to have you test them. Margot, I don't know how we arranged that, but no, seriously, Madewell. I bought the name before I joined J.Crew. A friend of mine came to me and said, "What do you think of the name?" I said, "I love that name. It's very hard to find a good name. I love the script. I like 1937. It's an old company in New Bedford, Mass. That went bankrupt or whatever." So he represented me, and we bought the name, and now we own Madewell. But Madewell's cool. But you just do things you like and have a good business, and that can compete out there in the marketplace.
We've got more interesting questions here than we will have time for, so I'm just going to pick a few with apologies to people who we
Okay, well, we can do this
don't
again.
get
We
to.
can do a weekly class.
I like that. All right,
Parsons.
it's a deal.
Look,
it's a deal.
I'm thankful for who Parsons sent to J.Crew.
It's a deal. One question actually picks up on what we've just been saying and observes that you sell on net-a-porter.
Yes.
So why is that, given what you've just said?
Well, you said it.
Oh,
The
okay.
answer you said, it's, what did you say? You used the word. Net-a-porter.
Yeah, that you're at the upper end of
No,
the...
you mentioned, what was the word he said? Like, it's a halo.
Oh, a halo effect, the halo
Net-a-porter
effect.
and
Halo
Natalie have been doing business with us for 4 or 5 years. I think we're one of their best-selling vendors. We do not make a fortune there, but everything doesn't get measured in numbers only. And a lot of business people say, well, what's the return on investment? But it's blended. We're there because it's one of the great businesses of the world. And that's why we sell them.
Can the business ever get so big that you can't run it on instinct the way you've been doing it?
I don't, let's worry about it when it gets to it, okay? I think that anyone who runs a great business and a big business, a small business, I don't think it's the size. Yeah, it has to be. Instinct is not this magical thing. It's a judgment, it's a vision, it's wisdom, it's knowledge, and having a feel. Look, I think certain people, Olympic athletes must have an instinct to be great at what they are.
Right.
Or a great surgeon. Who doesn't have a certain leaning or an instinct to do certain things? I mean, I look at songwriters. How the hell do you get up in the morning? That's a Carole King song. I get up in the morning, you write a song. How do you do that, right? So I believe that there's certain nature versus nurture. But I think, car businesses are billions of dollars. If they design some better looking cars and cooler colors, that's instinct. That's just judgment. I don't want to use the word instinct as a substitute for sound business judgment.
Right. But it's not data either. You're not data driven, I think.
I absolutely am data driven because if you have to be. I'm a business person. And there's a lot of misunderstandings. When I was at Gap, people say, oh, he just loves the goods. I'm not a designer. You look at the selling, you look at the velocity of selling, you look at the turn, absolutely data-driven, because from the first day the goods hit the store, it's then giving you a direction. I have this thing we patented, it's called the trendometer.
Okay.
It's a little circular piece of wood, I should have brought it here. At every meeting we have the trendometer. We made it, it's homemade, it's wood.
Right.
We give them out to everyone.
Parsons could have made a better one for you.
Right, they could have. The trendometer just tells you the world is about a trend. It's about, and you have to read the data to pick up on the trend.
Okay, right.
So absolutely data-driven. I was really good in math. Now that's just me. You have to be good in math to be a good merchant, because the numbers, you read the numbers. I don't know if this makes sense.
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. What
don't know how-
about, you're going beyond the U.S. now for the first time
Yes.
ever with stores in
Is that a
big
question
store
from
in
the
London?
audience or no?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're fair and respectful.
Yes. One of
Okay.
them, there's one question about China, another question about Europe, so it's actually
Okay.
2 in 1.
Okay.
Good.
So we opened 3 stores, 2 more to come in the UK. We're testing the waters. And we proceed with online, so we know how we're going to do. We're doing 2 stores in Hong Kong this year, and then we're holding off on China and the rest of Europe. We want to see how it goes. We want to learn. We don't want to expand too quickly. And remember for us, one of the realities, let's talk reality of business. You got to make money. You got to show a return on your investment. We're a privately held company. We were public. We have investors. And, no matter how much fun we all might have, without the profit. Is that you, Lisa? How are you? Good. Did you go to Parsons? No, you went to Dartmouth, right? Okay, I know that. Okay. Anyway, no matter how well you do, you have to make a profit.
Right.
So we're going slow. We have Madewell, which is only 65 stores now, which is a big growth opportunity. Factories, but we have a lot of growth opportunities, and you just have to pick your shots and your investments. So China, and we're not a double markup wholesale company. Remember, the companies that do really well sell the department stores, and then they sell their own stores, and they get double markup when they sell themselves. And there are companies like Chanel, you can't touch them no matter what, and Louis Vuitton and those kinds of businesses. But no, we're not going to China because the reports are very mixed and we're not ready.
Right.
And as long as we have enough growth domestically and in the UK and internationally, we have 101 countries we sell to online. So we have a lot of things going on, and then you have to determine as an investor, because we're really investors in goods, in real estate, and stores. We have to invest where we think the growth is. Because, if you don't have the growth, then the rest means nothing. Because you got to make money, and that's the fact of life.
Right. There's a question that actually, in a way, comes back to some of that about retail. How much impact do your individual retail managers have on the end result?
Enormous. Enormous. Because, and you all think about this. You can answer it. You go into a store. You go into a restaurant. You go into a hotel. They all have a certain energy and vibe, unless you're going to Walmart or you're buying pure price.
Right.
And in fact, I shouldn't repeat this in public, so I won't, but that store director is the key to the volume in every store we have. We have about 400 stores. I was with 8 of the Chicago area store directors today, and every one of them determines, I think, within 10 or 15% either way the business. So
Is that because of how they handle both their own staff
the staff
and
they
the,
hire
right.
If
the
you
public?
go into the New York, we have a Dave Howard at Columbus Men's. He does 1/3 the store. He's one person. We have very personal shoppers who drive so much of the volume
Right.
in the stores, and anyone who shops in the stores knows they will hopefully go out of their way to do anything. That being said, I'm challenging the teams like crazy to close all the sales. Like when I said 20% of the people might walk out, well, we have to be better at not letting them walk out. And we'll have new systems that help. But everyone says, oh, we don't have the systems. I said, you have the people. The systems is an excuse. Because, if systems and computers are nice, don't use it as an excuse. The store directors and the environment in that store are critical unless, look, I go to a restaurant. If I don't like the person at the front thing and they give you a little lip and attitude like most of the hot New York restaurants do, they do you a favor, screw you.
Right.
J.Crew is a very democratic place, and it has to be. Now, I got a report from someone. I get a lot of reports. We let a store manager go 3 weeks ago because when I was away over the holidays, someone I know who runs a great store said, you have a serious problem. The store directorate named the store. I listened to her because she knows. Sure enough, it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's one of our remote stores. Checked it out, and she was let go 2 weeks later because I said to them, I trust so-and-so, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And sure enough, and then I looked at the numbers of the store. The store was not doing well, and then the team agreed, not just because I said it, I hope.
Right.
And then you have to spend time with the store people. That's what I do. You've got to let them know you care. They're very important.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you spent today visiting stores, right?
I was in Chicago on my way from another place. I stopped at the airport midway. It was -6. and I had cold pizza with 8 store directors. But I came away, again, you connect dots. It helps you. It reinforces. Look, we started Old Navy because of people at Gap who said, I can't find nice value clothes. But that's nothing new. You have to do that. You think some of the bureaucrats, the bureaucrats, spend time on the floors, or they spend time with the people? That's why I like no offices.
You have no offices?
No, there's no
like
closed,
Bloomberg.
There's no closed offices.
Right.
I don't think you should. Now look, in my whole career, there was always offices. But I don't like offices. I like a loudspeaker. I like people. We have open office hours. Tell me what you think, I mean, I don't get a lot. You come up for open office hours. You never came up, but, next time.
That's very cool. You open up for anyone on the staff to come?
Yeah, well, anyone can come. It's open office hours, meaning either send an email. Look, a lot of people are afraid because they don't know, and then they think and they get nervous. But yeah, people give ideas that work. Send an email. Well, no one gets fired for a bad idea. If you have 5 bad, and you're not doing your job, you get fired. But not for a bad idea. But then they're good. And if you hear 2 or 3 things about something, usually,
Great. There's another question about a little more technical, but I think it'll be interesting to hear what you say, which is, what is your biggest problem with the supply chain and supply chain management today?
Now, that's not, I will tell you what I think it is. It's not my pay grade, okay? I will say in any organization, you hire people that know what they're doing. IT, not a word do I ever understand what an IT person says. I don't interview them, because I interview most people in the company. Supply chain, our board of directors always says faster, faster, faster. And I say quality is not fast. So we'd like to be faster, but if you want cheap clothes, you can be fast. And you might be making it in Bangladesh, and some people care or don't care, we care. I'd say the biggest problem, and it's not a problem we can figure out, is very long lead times. Piece goods, fabrics, high quality lead times are much longer than the cheap fast fashion players. So, but I don't know if that's a problem or a reality.
Actually, that's another question here. In fact, how do you deal with the impact of the Uniqlo and the other super fast companies like that?
Well, we don't.
Do you see yourself as not really directly competitive?
No, look, you compete with everyone. In the old days, I was a Saks customer, I'm not a Macy. Today, everyone shops everywhere. Everyone's competing with everyone else, and if anyone thinks they're not, then they're not aware, in my opinion. I think Uniqlo's a great company. I'm good friends with Mr. Yanai. He actually copied the Gap. He told me that in 1987. I'm not saying anything out of school. When we met in Tokyo, he said, thank you. Now he's the richest man in Tokyo, by the way. He is. He's the richest man in Japan, Mr. Yanai. But I think, look, people are shopping differently. If you want to buy fast clothes, fast fashion, you buy them. If you want to buy J.Crew, I look at J.Crew as clothes that you kind of put away and don't want to throw away. Throw out. People know there's seasonal things that get thrown out. But, it's very hard. We're all killing each other, and there's too many of us. There's too much assortment. There's too much supply. There's too much sale, and you can't control that. That's the way it is, and therefore we have to get so much better at what we focus on and market it better and own more socks, not 400 of the spring sock. If you create dominance in categories, you win big, and in things that aren't out there. And I love to go after things that are not there in every competitor. And then we count on the quality card. At Madewell, our mission is to have people not spend $200 on $100 jeans. And we put a team together. We opened up a production office and a design office in LA. And that's why I meant the 20% off if you want, because we've revamped our entire jeans collection. Our mission at Madewell, we're $98 to $130, $140 jeans. See, when we do the math, and the customers don't do the math, if we pay $30 for a pair of jeans and designer brand pays $30, their $30 goes to $70. Well, people here in wholesale, the $70 goes to $140, probably $165. Our $30 goes to $100. And now we've put together a team. Now everyone says they hired someone from so-and-so. It doesn't mean anything. But we hired someone from so-and-so. In our case, it means something, because we hired someone who really had a lot to do with so-and-so. And we have the fabrics, we have the piece goods, we have the fit, we have the pattern makers. And then you decide on a mission, and then you got to keep going there until you think it's not going to work, then you back off. So, so for us, price, competitors, they're not going away.
But you're aiming at a customer, it seems to me, who's, is it fair to say, whose sophistication might be a little higher than his or her pocketbook?
At Madewell, you mean, or J.Crew?
J.Crew in general, I think.
No, I think, look, you know, if you leave Manhattan, this is a very sick place, Manhattan. It's like all people think about is fashion.
A minute ago, it was your favorite place in the world.
It is. I love this town,
Okay.
but it's so clothes-centric and image-centric and style-centric. It's so intimidatingly cool.
Right.
You know? But for me, I never think of shooting. I just think of really great quality clothes at really comfortable prices. Now, one of the things we sometimes do, and this is business stuff, is we sometimes shoot a little high, and our mix might be a little expensive. And if you look at our assortments this spring and second quarter, we have adjusted. Margot, I hope I'm not telling any secrets. It's all done, right? It's okay. You'll see our pricing mix and marketing much more friendly this year. Not that we won't have collection, but we can't compete with designer. If someone wants designer, they go to designer. Now, our Madison Avenue 66th Street store is our collection store. We do enormous business there, but New Yorkers know.
Yeah.
So they know, they understand.
How does the men's store at 79th Street do?
Well, our men's business has been our best growth business, because I think in men's, we just give them things they can't find in a lot of places. And the Ludlow suit's a phenomenon. We're introducing another one. We do really well there. We do well at the liquor store, actually put our men's business on the map. Now, that store came about in an interesting way. I don't know if anyone's been there, but you should be there.
Yeah, actually, it was another thing I was going to ask you if we had time.
What?
The story of the liquor store.
Well, I was
Tell us.
with, we had looked at the store. This is interesting. We looked at the store a few times. It was for rent, and the landlord then, 5 years ago, lived above. And our team, I don't know if you've been there, there's a bar. So the landlord said to our real estate team, I wasn't familiar with it, that we can't move the bar out, and I didn't know this, and we can't put a sign, a J.Crew sign. Fine. Now, the rent was so reasonable. I didn't know this. Andy Spades, from Kate Spade's husband, is in my office one day. They do work with us. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. We're schmoozing, and he's a very creative guy. And he said, "Do you ever look at the liquor store downtown?" I said, "No, my team says he can't do this." So he said, "Let's go see it." So we went to the liquor store, fell in love with it. So then the team comes, they say, "Well, keep the bar. Who cares about the name? This is fantastic." And by the way, the business part, the rents were, how much can you lose, right? There's always a downside. We signed a lease within a week.
Wow.
Now, we moved in, and then it put us on the map in Tokyo and Japan. We got a lot of fun.
Yeah, because that was kind of the beginning of this sort of slightly separate image.
Right. It was
for
the beginning.
the separate men's business.
You know, it's why you have to micromanage to a degree or follow your instinct. Now, my instinct works also on profit. If the rents were 5 times the rent there, which they might be on our next renewal, then we're not going to be there. But when you looked at the rent and you say, if this thing fails, but you can't be afraid to fail as long as you're balancing the failure off with your successes. And you got to make mistakes. If you don't want to make a mistake, then you can't run a great business.
Right.
And that's why when I look at all these stores today, they look like shopping malls, most of them. There's a lot like Lisa Salzer's here, and Marlin. Lulu Frost. Now, Lisa, we do business with Lisa. And I always say to Lisa, if you like Lulu Frost, you know Lulu Frost? It's her right there. So anyway, I always say to Lisa, as a friend, I said, I shouldn't say this, but why don't they open up a shop? Why do you need to have all these names that we all know about? But there's a lot of these little vendors, and I might be hurting us, because I think all these little vendors we do business with, these little brands, should be the brands that drive newness in a lot of businesses. But we just, look, our weakness is we get turned on by great goods. And then you figure out how to make money with them. Now, Michelle searches the world for cool goods for kids and baby, right? What's the latest item you have? All right, forget it. I don't want to put you on the spot. So, okay.
What do you do with, another question is, what do you do with stuff that doesn't work?
You mark it down.
You mark it down, and you just jettison it, and that's that, right?
It is what it is. You got to convert it to cash. When I got to Gap, I'll never forget this. Don calls me. He goes, "What are you doing, taking all these markdowns?" That was our first huge fight. I started Thanksgiving Monday. This was the middle of January. He goes, "We're going to get killed. Our margins are going down." I said, "I got to take the markdowns. You got to convert it to cash." He goes, "You can't do it." And I started cursing him out. Then I was very upset. I hated living in San Francisco. I was commuting every day. I said, "If you don't take markdowns, how do you get rid of the goods? Because then they get staler and staler. You take your markdowns and you move forward." You know, no one knows how many mistakes Steve Jobs made in his career because he kept moving forward. And
he didn't, however, take markdowns. He just
did.
never brought a product to market until
well, he might have, but you know,
point,
look, big corporations are basically anti-risk.
Yeah.
Okay, most of us are not hireable in big corporations.
Right.
I wasn't happy. I didn't. Again, you don't realize it because you have to pay the rent.
Right.
You know, but most people I know who are very creative need environments that matches up with their creativity, or else they get stuck. And big corporations, I think, yes, you agree? Because big corporations, by definition, are let's protect what we have and let's not take the risk. And now think about CEO. Is the press here besides women's wear? You're writing about this. Okay, whatever. So, I mean, what, Margot, what? Okay, okay, whatever. I'll say whatever I want, right? Who's going to do anything? But I'm saying, look, please don't make me regret what I said, okay? I don't. But big corporations, by definition, are
risk averse. Sure.
They're risk averse, and they're protective of the ranks. And you know, look, there was something in the papers last week about. I'm not going to mention his name, but you all read about the huge bonuses and then the huge fines they paid. You know, and everyone. Yeah. Yes, you know, I mean, sometimes there's got to be accountability, and I like the fact that at J.Crew, 18 of us have our money invested in the company. You have money, right, Jen? Yeah. She has money. You have money invested in the company. We actually have our cash invested. Makes a big difference. Now, I didn't have it in Gap, but J.Crew, I bought in it first, and then I reinvested, and I think it makes a difference.
Sure.
But as long as the leadership allows one to do what has to get done to move forward every day.
What do you, can you recall any particular, if I can go back a moment ago where we talked to that question about things that don't work. Any particular thing that you've pushed that didn't work? Oh, I mean, what was a big time you were wrong?
Hemisphere at Gap. We started a new company. We put, well, it didn't sound like a lot of money. We put $20 million into it, and it didn't work. It was kind of what it didn't work. It was branded goods only. Hemisphere, I'm not proud to say it was a name from a great old Paris store I admired. And we went out and bought all the greatest brands in the world. But it just, we closed it within 2 or 3 years. The handwriting was on the wall. Didn't want to live with it. But there were other reasons. But that, for sure, as a category, I always think my biggest mistake, is personal to business, was when we did 1969 jeans at Gap. It was in the mid-'90s. It's silly that I remember these things, but you remember. It was a big lesson. We had an instinct, the jeans business, maybe it was in 2000, I don't know when it started. And the jeans business, then we felt we were selling $35, $40 jeans. We said it was time to move up. We hired Adriana Goldschmied from AG and now from Citizens, and he worked with us, and he was a terrifically wonderful, talented guy. We went after Gap 1969. The prices started, it was a little tacky when I think about it, $69.50 to $100. Blew out. But, and this gets to, and some people in the company thought they were too expensive. And, you know, when you have a lot to do, sometimes you don't pay attention to things, and we just, I kind of let it slide, and I shouldn't have. That was a huge mistake for Gap and where it's going. And plus, there's a lot of other mistakes you make. You know, real estate mistakes. just they're always there.
At J.Crew, have you ever felt you've misread a trend?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Totally. Jenny, you remember it? No, you're saying no? I mean, misread. You mean buy too much? Usually
No, I meant, or
usually-
decided that things were going to go in one particular direction, they went in another.
Yeah, but then yeah, of course.
Right.
Then you just take your markdowns.
Right.
I mean,
and-
we take our markdowns, we have these fantastic discounts for our associates, take 90 off, and they sell, and then you move on. You can't commiserate, because you got to go forward.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, look, you have to make mistakes. As long as you balance off the mistakes.
Right.
I'm trying to think of the biggest mistake. Do you remember? No? Okay.
Okay. We're actually beyond our allotted time. This has been so great. Let's end with one interesting question that I think gets to your imagination. If you could revamp any company similar to what you did with J.Crew in any business at all, what company would it be, and what do you think you would want to do with it?
Oh, there's a few out there.
You can answer. You don't have to answer with one. That's okay.
I've had these conversations with people who are in control of some of these companies. Well, I'll tell you what. I said I wouldn't name companies, right?
It's okay. You can name companies. We're just among friends. It's okay. It's sort of,
I would love to see. Margot has kind of. I trust her judgment. I was going to mention one company. No, I can't mention the name.
Okay.
There's actually one company that's out there. I can't mention it. I'm sorry, because then it's going to be in the papers, because Women's Wear is going to write about it. I know the people that run the business, and I can't tell you.
okay.
You know what I'm thinking, Margot?
Can you
No.
tell us what you do with it, even though you can't tell us what it is?
If you have, I love authenticity and great brands. That's what I love. Now, Old Navy sounded like that, but it wasn't.
Right.
Gap wasn't, but it had great recognition and great real estate. I can't tell you what it is, but they have one of the greatest brand names in the world going to hell.
That you would love to fix if you could.
I wouldn't love to fix it because I know all these people and we've chatted about it.
Right.
No, it's too much work now for me. I love what I do. The nice thing is when people take over companies, say, well, why don't you do this? It's much bigger. I don't love big. I love what's beautiful and fun now. And I've done well, and I have enough, and so on and so forth. But I'll tell you later.
Okay. You've mentioned cars a number of times.
Cars, yes.
Would you ever want to be in that business?
I wouldn't want to be in the business, but Steve Jobs, if he had lived, was going to design an iCar.
Right.
And that's that was just a chat. It wasn't anything. And I think cars have an extraordinary opportunity for cool design. You must also.
I love car design.
You're a
it's always been
design
one of my
person.
favorite
And then you
fields.
look at the cars, and most things in the world, I think, are commoditized to appeal to most people. And there are cars out there and brands out there that I think would be fun. Now, again, I think what cars need is someone with a vision on design.
I'd love to see a Jonathan Ive car.
Well, exactly. Right? Well, that would have been the iCar.
Of,
Steve, what's funny, we had, towards the end of his life, we had one discussion at the board meeting, and he wasn't an easy personality. And this was when they had the first Tesla. And it was kind of an unattractive
the early one, not the current one is much better.
Remember how ugly it was?
Yeah.
So Steve was talking about the Tesla and what a great car it is. So I say mistakenly, it was fine. I said, such an ugly car. And he looked at me and said, you just don't get it. He said the insides and the engineering of that car are brilliant. Anyone can design a great car, but they have the platform to do it. And he wasn't that pleasant about it, but
Right, I can imagine.
But he also lived in another plane.
Right.
With seeing things the way others don't see them. And I think a lot of people see things as others don't see them. And how could you create newness if you see things the way others see them? So it's contrarian, it's opposite, it's instinct, which you never can lose at any level, and it's product.
I'm fascinated by the fact that you have built your, let's say, instinct or reputation or business on not necessarily creating the newest thing, but in fact on this idea of assembling great stuff from everywhere and then pushing it all forward a little
Well,
bit.
you're right. It's not, there's nothing that's not out there.
Right.
And if you look at most designs in this world, and designers, they're in the same vintage shops we're all in, and admit it in a sense.
Right.
But for us, when you run a big business and you have a responsibility to your associates and yourself, there has to be a commercial and economic life to the business. We invent, but we kind of, on the edge, we sharpen the edge
Right,
on things.
right.
Our pixie pant, one of the great, I don't know if anyone wear the pixie pant? I'd give you 20% on that too. But, it's a pant that makes every woman, you look fantastic. It's a back zipper pant we have. So every woman says, what's the name of that pant you have that I look great at any age, by the way? Now, so we try to invent things that are better, but not revolutionary.
Right, right.
And I don't,
That's what I find so fascinating about it, is that you're kind of leading the customer, but not so far ahead that they don't connect.
Well, I've always felt you
certainly.
need to, at the end of the day, have an economic viable business to have before you can have fun. And for me, I like things that sell a lot. I love things that sell.
Right.
And if, I just love
But I think
things
you also love familiar things, I think, and you just want to make them better.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that-
to
is
make
that-
it better. It's an
yeah,
imagination.
yeah.
It's throughout my career, and I remember the one person that influenced me most was Katie Murphy, who has an auditorium at FIT, which I don't know if it's a competitor, not named after her. Now, Katie and I joined Bloomingdale's at 22 or 23. I went on my honeymoon with Katie, 3 weeks in Italy, and I traveled with her, and she died at a very young age. But she was a fashion director, and she really knew more about the goods than anyone in that company. And we go out, so I didn't know any different. We go out, and I was a young kid. I'd worked at a department store. I worked at A&S in Brooklyn on a summer job. And so we went out, and we just had fun buying nice goods. And then the nice goods we bought, there was a ribbed sweater from Marina Ghini. It was $16.50, so it would be a $75 sweater today. And we just go to Europe 3 times a year for 2 years. We buy great sweaters and swimwear. At the swimsuit thing. And I didn't think about anything, but we loved it.
Right.
But then you love what's commercial. And so when people say, well, who was the most influential person? Again, you always connect dots backwards. I had no idea it was Katie until years later, because that's how it was done then.
Right.
So, but no, you can't be on the too cutting edge, because I know some great design companies. One of my heroes, I can't name it, they don't make any money. They are most brilliantly creative design. Well, most design companies don't make money.
Right.
Because the designs can't be too far to the left.
Right.
Or else you have to have an economic thing going on.
Right. Great. This is fantastic. Mickey, thank you very, very much. Please join me in thanking
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you. Thank you all for being here as well. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.